November 22nd, 2009. A nationwide organization of citizens, organized online through the End the Fed network, held rallies outside Federal Reserve Bank and office locations in more than 30 cities across the United States to call for an end to the Federal Reserve System and what the organizers call a return to the U.S. Constitution. A promo video that was posted on the organization's website encouraged citizens to come out and to know who is to blame.
The economy is collapsing all around us. Banks are closing. The Federal Reserve continues to pump billions of dollars into the system to try to stop the bleeding. No, who is to blame? The Federal Reserve System. On November 22nd, the end begins. Every Federal Reserve Bank, every Federal Reserve office, 38 cities, one purpose: end the Fed. Visit endthefed.us and sign up today to get involved. Action groups are forming now at restorerepublic.net. Join us in this national grassroots action to end the Federal Reserve System. November 22nd, the end begins.
The end began outside the Downtown Cincinnati Federal Reserve office at 12 noon, where about 30 to 40 citizens gathered holding signs and passing out literature. Though no particular local organization sponsored the event, attendants were comprised of members of various local organizations, from the Cincinnati 912 Project to the Cincinnati chapter of the 9/11 Truth Movement, to members of the Cincinnati Tea Party. Attendants carried signs denouncing the Federal Reserve, calling for the arrest of Federal Reserve Chair Ben Bernanke and former Secretary of the Treasury Henry Paulson, and claiming that the government was responsible for acts such as the September 11th attacks and the Oklahoma City bombing. There were also a few people gathered who continued to express doubts about President Obama's citizenship. One woman's sign even read, "I am libertarian. I was tricked by an African." This gentleman mugging for the camera is Craig Slanker. I spoke with him off camera, and he encouraged me to quote him in my report. Over the last few months, Slanker has attended rallies against healthcare reform and even traveled to Washington, D.C. to participate in Glenn Beck's 9/12 March on Washington. Slanker told me that it was like a big family reunion with 1.3 million of his closest friends, although that it should be noted that ABC News estimated that event at a much lower number of between 60 and 70,000 people. Slanker told me that many of the people gathered at this Cincinnati event were not from Cincinnati, but from surrounding areas who were concerned enough about the Federal Reserve to come to this event. Slanker said that he is concerned about the value of the dollar and is investing in metals that hold their value. "I am stocking up on gold, I am stocking up on silver, and I am stocking up on lead," Slanker told me, laughing. I asked what he was trying to imply in his comment about stocking up on lead. Slanker told me that he would leave it up to me on how to interpret that comment. The rally continued on with Elliot Feldman, who addressed the gathered participants and anyone else who happened to pass by the corner of 4th and Main Street.
All right? It goes way beyond China owning so much of our debt. You want to know the biggest holder of our debt? Look right behind me. The Federal Reserve, the private central bank of this nation. Now, American education is quite mundane. We all know this. And they leave out a lot of important things in American education. Specifically, when they make kids read the Communist Manifesto and yet overlook our United States Constitution. Let me remind you, Karl Marx, in the Communist Manifesto, I will tell you, 2 out of the 10 planks in the Communist Manifesto to have a central bank, central state-owned bank, and a graduated income tax. Did you know that? Wait a minute, but I thought we're in a free market capitalistic system. Democracy. Nope, sorry, you were right. We are not. 2, again, let me tell you, 2 out of the 10 planks of the Communist Manifesto to have a central bank, which is right behind me, and a graduated income tax. Now,
after a while, organizer Bradford Zink took to the bullhorn.
Let's talk about the king of England. England, King George III, and the Bank of England was the whole reason why we fought the revolution. 1776, we declared our independence from the great British Empire and the Bank of England in London. Why? Because they were crooks, because they were criminals, because they were monarchs, unelected dictators. This is why we gained our independence. The colonists wanted to print their own money, interest-free, in the United States of America. And yet, when we detached from England, King George III declared eternal war on the United States. And what is the Federal Reserve? It is neither federal nor does it have reserves. It is not American. It is not government. It is a private bank owned and controlled by the British. It is owned by the Rothschild family and the British Empire and the monarchy. The same people that have declared eternal war against us own the Federal Reserve, where we pay our taxes to through the IRS. Think about that. We are being scammed. We are being undermined from within. We are being destroyed. Our economy is going down the tubes because our eternal enemies own our Federal Reserve, a private bank. That building should be called the Bank of England because there is no difference. There is no difference between the Bank of England, the Federal Reserve, the Bank of International Settlements. There is no difference between the international bankers because it is a global cartel controlled through the government enforcement. Why is the government enforcing these criminal actions? Why is the government undermining our own sovereignty? This is because it is an international organization. The United States only exists now in name only. The United States is now corporately controlled through corporations owned and operated by Federal Reserve banking institutions, controlled mostly by the Rockefeller family and the Rothschilds in England. This is not America anymore. This is not the country that was founded under the Constitution. Think about it.
After Bradford Zink's comments, Elliot Feldman took to the bullhorn and spoke continuously for the next hour, railing against one world government, the Communist Manifesto, and the presidential administrations from Reagan to Obama. Feldman urged everyone to support the Federal Reserve Transparency Act of 2009 that was introduced in the House by Republican Ron Paul of Texas, and the Federal Reserve Sunshine Act of 2009 that was introduced to the Senate by independent Bernie Sanders of Vermont. Both pieces of legislation would make changes to the United States Code in order to allow for audits of the Federal Reserve. Proponents argue that this legislation is necessary in order to provide greater oversight. The House bill currently has 313 sponsors, including Republican Michelle Bachmann of Minnesota and Democrat Dennis Kucinich of Ohio. The House version of the bill just recently passed the House Financial Services Committee on November 19th, and the Senate version has been referred to the Committee on Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs with 30 co-sponsors. This is Chris Johnson with the Cincinnati Beacon and the Chris's Commons blog.